So, the book offers a way to organize your thoughts on how to solve any kind of problem, but particularly they're thinking about word problems or situation problems, are sometimes called. The big idea is that this is very generic. This can't do everything because you're learning new techniques all the time that are going to try to be applied in those word problems. So this is like the generic outline, and you can kind of think of this as like if you were to ask for help, you could tell me, I had trouble understanding the problem, reading it, understanding what all the details and relationships are. I had a, I had trouble planning to solve the problem. Did I couldn't figure out which one of the formulas we were supposed to use that we learned today. I had trouble solving it. Um, you know, I figured out what I was supposed to use, but once I got to there, I didn't know how to solve it the rest of the way. Um, or you could say, I got this answer. It was the wrong answer. How could I have checked to see whether or not it was a reasonable answer? And that is stuff like, uh, you know, my example that I have written down on this one is 13.4 people is usually not a reasonable answer, but 13 people is. There are times where 13.4 is a very reasonable answer because you're talking about something statistical that's over thousands of people, and there's actually millions of people in the country, so the rounding error takes care of itself. But you know that that happens a lot with experience and really making sure that you understand the situation. But these are pretty good places to start and how to start thinking about each problem as you get into it. So let's try to apply these in example 2 here. So use the 4-step solving plan. It's about air travel, airplanes, passengers, that kind of stuff. Refer to the information at the left. In how many days will 261,000 flights have occurred in the United States? Okay, so we're looking for some total number of flights. All right. Um, so, real world link. In 1919, Britain and France offered a flight that carried 2 passengers at a time. Now there are more than 87,000 flights each day in the U.S. Ooh, they were talking about finding a bunch of flights happening in the U.S. That last little bit there. There are now more than 87,000 flights each day in the U.S. That's connected to what my answer is, right? They're the same kind of numbers. They're describing similar things. So those are going to be what I want to use. So, and I've got a target of 261,000 and the answer I'm looking for, and it's always good to try to find out what do they finally want at the end. What is your ultimate goal? Your answer is going to be about how many days it is. So, not how many flights, it's going to be how many days. All right. But the flights is going to be used in that. So, do we feel like we've understood the problem? We have read and reread the situation until you can identify all the details and relationships? I think so. Um, Plan, decide what tasks have to be completed. Okay, so now we have to figure out what we need to do. Well, what's happening with this kind of problem is you've got a rate, which is happening over here. It's telling you every day 87,000 flights are happening. So if I were to very basically look at it, one day, 87,000 flights. 2 days, I would just have to add them together, right? But this is old school. It would do a lot of calculation until you figured out you were close. What you really want to think about is repeated addition is the same as multiplication. So if I multiply 87,000 times the number of days, let D equal days, then we'll know after how many days we'll have the total number of flights. Total number of flights. So 87,000 times D. So if I wanted 2, I'd plug a 2 in for D. If I wanted 3 days, I'd plug in 3 days. 4 days for 100 days, I'd plug in 100 for D. And it would tell me the total number of flights that have occurred in the United States. So the thing is, do I actually have a total number that is my target? I do. 261,000. Now I've got my whole equation. 261,000. All right. So now I've got my equation all set up. I've got my plan. I need to solve that equation, right? Now I don't. You might not have many solving techniques available to you yet. Depends on what you remember from Algebra 1. Usually at any point in a math class, you're only ever really able to use what you've learned so far. But if you have, if you remember how to solve this equation using a single step technique, then you can use it. I am going to use a replacement set. So we're going to check it for 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day, and 5 day. And we're going to see how close we get. So, I think I'm going to need some more space here. So if it's 1 day, well, 87,000 times 1, does that equal 261,000? No. So when I look back at my replacement set, maybe I shouldn't have put 1 day in there. I knew that wasn't going to be enough people. So now let's try the other end. That's one thing I like to do with the replacement sets. I like to jump back and forth sometimes. Let's try 5 days. 87,000 times 5. Does that equal 261,000? 87,000 times 5 is 435,000. And that doesn't equal 261,000 either. So now we know day 5 isn't. Now the nice thing here is now I know my answer's somewhere between 2, 3, and 4, right? I found 1 was too small, 5 is too big. It's probably going to be in between those, right? Let's try the middle. How about 3 days? So 87,000 times 3, does that equal 261,000? And really with all these, I should be writing a little question mark over them because I don't know that they're equal. I'm testing to see whether or not they're equal. So 87,000 times 3. Wow, look at that. 261,000 equals 261,000. That one checks out. So, how long? It's 3 days is what our answer is, right? D equals 3. What I want to do now is, does that solution seem reasonable? Does it really answer the question? And how many days will 261,000 flights have occurred in the United States? 3 days. Yeah, that makes sense. I'm not trying to answer in weeks or years. Fractions of days would have been passable on this, right? But now we just want to write the answer out. And a good way to write out a nice, clean, sentence-long response for a question like this. So you take a look at the sentence of the question. And how many days will 261,000 flights have occurred in the United States. Well, just take the phrase how many days, or the how many part. We know how many now. It's 3. And rewrite that, making sure you watch the words so it doesn't turn back into a question. So that usually means we drop the in how many days. But really, in this case, I feel like I need that there. And you can reorder things. Like maybe you put the 261,000 first, but you could say in 3 days, 261,000 flights occur in the U.S. And there I have a nice, clearly written, restating it so that the answer makes sense with the context of the problem. And yeah, there we go. That's the end of example 2.